Westerns that straight up stole from other movies. Success changes Hollywood. One hit movie arrives, and suddenly everyone wants another one. It happens in every genre. Superhero films, action movies, science fiction, and westerns were no exception. In fact, some of the most famous westerns ever made inspired waves of imitators. Sometimes the copycats were surprisingly good. Sometimes they were shameless knockoffs. And sometimes they accidentally became classics themselves. Today we're looking at westerns that tried to copy other westerns and discovering whether they succeeded, failed, or created something entirely new. Let's ride. Number 10. The Quick and the Dead, 1987. Copying High Plains Drifter. When Clint Eastwood's High Plains Drifter became a cult classic, audiences responded to its mysterious stranger, dark tone, and almost supernatural atmosphere. A decade later came The Quick and the Dead, starring Sam Elliott. Like High Plains Drifter, the film follows a mysterious drifter entering a troubled town with unfinished business. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Both feature isolated communities. Both center on a stranger with a hidden past. Both blur the line between revenge story and ghost story. Yet, while High Plains Drifter remains the more influential film, The Quick and the Dead developed its own loyal following among Western fans. Sometimes copying a good idea isn't such a bad thing. Number 9. The Last Hard Men. Copying The Wild Bunch. After The Wild Bunch shocked audiences in 1969 with its violence and gritty realism, Hollywood wanted more, a lot more. One of the clearest examples was The Last Hard Men. Like The Wild Bunch, it focused on aging gunfighters trapped in a changing West. The film emphasized brutality, moral ambiguity, and a world where traditional heroes no longer fit. But there was a problem. The Wild Bunch had already done it better. While The Last Hard Men remains an entertaining Western, it never achieved the cultural impact of the film that inspired it. Number 8. Hundreds of singing cowboy westerns, copying Gene Autry. Sometimes an entire subgenre is built on imitation. When Gene Autry became one of Hollywood's biggest stars during the 1930s, studios rushed to create their own singing cowboys. Suddenly theaters were flooded with musical Western heroes. Cowboys sang around campfires. Cowboys serenaded ranch owners. Cowboys solved crimes between songs. Stars like Tex Ritter, Rex Allen, and others benefited from the trend. Some became successful in their own right, but all owe a debt to the blueprint Gene Autry helped create. Number 7. The Return of a Man Called Horse, copying A Man Called Horse. This might sound obvious, because it is. The original A Man Called Horse became a major success by showing Native American culture in a way audiences hadn't seen before. Naturally, Hollywood wanted more. The sequel attempted to create the same formula, the same themes, the same style, the same appeal. But many critics felt it lacked the freshness and impact of the original. It's a reminder that repeating a formula rarely captures the lightning of the first success. Number 6. Zapata, copying The Man with No Name films. When Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy exploded worldwide, Italian filmmakers rushed to create similar characters. One of the most famous examples was Zapata. The similarities were easy to spot. A mysterious gunfighter, stylish shootouts, eccentric villains, clever tricks. Even the visual style echoed Leone's influence. Yet Zapata managed something many imitators never achieved. It became popular enough to launch its own franchise. Instead of being remembered merely as a copy, it became part of spaghetti western history. If you're enjoying the countdown so far, let me know in the comments which western copycat actually surpassed the original, and which one failed completely. I'd love to hear your picks. Now, let's continue. Number 5. Django copying A Fistful of Dollars. One of the most famous copycats in Western history wasn't actually a failure. It was Django. Released shortly after the success of A Fistful of Dollars, Django borrowed heavily from the lone anti-hero formula that audiences loved. A mysterious stranger arrives. A divided community sits on the edge of violence. Enemies underestimate him. Big mistake. Yet Django introduced enough original ideas to stand apart. The mud-soaked atmosphere, the coffin, the brutality, the unforgettable machine gun. Instead of disappearing into Leone's shadow, Django became one of the most influential westerns ever made. Number 4. The Magnificent Seven copying Seven Samurai. This is probably the greatest remake copy in Western history. The Magnificent Seven follows the exact basic structure of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. A village under threat, outmatched civilians. A group of professional fighters hired for protection. The framework is almost identical, yet the Western adaptation worked brilliantly. Audiences embraced the American frontier version, and decades later, many movie fans know The Magnificent Seven, even if they've never seen Seven Samurai. Number 3. Countless Italian westerns, copying The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Few films have ever inspired more imitators. After The Good, the Bad and the Ugly became a worldwide sensation, hundreds of European westerns attempted to recreate its magic. The ingredients were familiar: dusty landscapes, extreme close-ups, morally questionable heroes, stylized violence, memorable music. Some succeeded, most didn't, but together they created the explosion of spaghetti westerns that dominated the genre for years. Number 2. Hang 'em High, copying the Dollars trilogy. When Clint Eastwood returned to America after becoming a star in Europe, studios wanted one thing: another man with no name. Hang 'em High wasn't literally the same character, but audiences immediately recognized the similarities. The squint, the calm confidence, the willingness to let enemies make fatal mistakes. The film essentially served as Eastwood's bridge between spaghetti western fame and Hollywood stardom, and audiences loved it. Number 1. A Fistful of Dollars, copying Yojimbo. The greatest Western copycat of all time may also be one of the greatest Westerns ever made. Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars borrowed heavily from Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. In fact, the similarities were so significant that legal action followed. The basic plot remained remarkably similar. A wandering outsider arrives. Two rival factions fight for control. The stranger manipulates both sides. Violence follows. Yet Leone transformed the material into something entirely new. He created the spaghetti western. He launched Clint Eastwood's career, and he changed Western history forever. Without this copy, the genre might look very different today.
My mistake. 4 coffins.
Not every copycat is a failure. Sometimes imitation creates innovation. Sometimes borrowing becomes transformation. And sometimes a filmmaker takes an existing idea and turns it into something even more memorable. Western history is filled with examples, from A Fistful of Dollars borrowed from Yojimbo, to Django, building on Leone's formula, to countless films chasing the success of the good, the bad, and the ugly. The genre evolved because filmmakers kept learning from one another. Now I want to hear from you. Which Western copycat was the best? And which one was the most obvious ripoff? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this countdown, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Western deep dives. This is Wrangler, signing off.
The channel for Westerns and more.